I've fallen for someone. You can keep the kid.
Then let's get you divorced. My husband and mother-in-law selfishly tried to push me out, despite the years I've supported this farm. Why could they betray me so easily? Amidst this, someone unexpected saved me from the brink of despair. My name is Reina, a 38-year-old housewife. I've been married to Chris for 10 years. We met at a company in San Francisco, originally as senior and junior colleagues. He was 2 years my senior and trained me when I joined the company. Even after I became independent in my work, he always looked out for me. Our relationship grew closer as we worked on the same project. We became good friends quickly because we were always working together, and after the project ended, we started dating. Our relationship went smoothly, and then I found out I was pregnant. I was surprised to be pregnant before marriage, but he was thrilled. Chris said,
Reina, I know it's a bit out of order, but let's get married. We'll build a warm family together.
Yeah, sounds like a great plan. I happily agreed. I was glad he said that. Though we had only been dating for a year, I had hoped to be married by 30, so getting pregnant then seemed almost like a miracle. Little did I know, this was the beginning of hellish days. We immediately went to tell our parents. My parents lived in San Francisco, so we could easily visit them. They liked him and agreed to our marriage. Chris said,
Man, I was so nervous.
Aw, poor baby. You were even stumbling over your own name.
Well, meeting the parents for marriage is really nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I'm nervous about meeting your parents too. Chris reassured.
My parents will be fine. They were really happy when I told them we're getting married and expecting a child.
Oh, that's great. Wait, your family runs a farm, right? Does this mean you'll take over?
Well, eventually, I might.
Really? At that moment, I had a bad feeling. Maybe they would expect us to immediately take over the farm. But I was already pregnant, and calling off the marriage wasn't an option. Plus, I still loved him and didn't consider breaking up. So we went to his rural hometown together. Glad you could come.
Not only are you marrying into the family, but you're also ready to provide a successor? That's wonderful.
They selfishly moved the conversation forward, asking, So, when can you start working on the farm? I was stunned. His father then suggested,
It's better to learn the job early. You can live with us before the wedding.
Chris, that's okay with you, right?
Sure.
Wait a minute. What about your job, Chris?
Well, if I'm taking over the farm, I have to quit.
You can't just quit immediately. You need to give at least a month's notice.
Oh, I do? Sorry, Mom, Dad. We'll need about 2 months.
Well, if it's company policy, we can't help it. His father complained.
Companies should be more flexible.
Relieved we had at least 2 months, I wondered if all farm families were this forceful. I was shocked Chris so easily decided to move and take over the farm. Back in San Francisco, I confronted him. You said eventually about taking over, but at your parents', it seemed decided.
Well, I'm the oldest son. What do you expect?
That's not what I'm getting at. I wished he took more responsibility for his words, especially about something as significant as taking over a business. This made me anxious about our marriage. But there was no turning back. I quit my job to get married, and he quit to take over the farm. Moving in with his family, I was nervous. But his parents, surprisingly, were kind. You only do light work because you're pregnant.
Yeah, we need you and the baby to be healthy.
I thanked them. They made sure to reduce my workload.
Hey Chris, you have to work harder to make up for Reina's work. Dad, I haven't done farm work in a while, so go easy on me.
Everyone was friendly, and I was happy. I thought we could live happily if it continued like this. But then his parents showed their true colors.
Reina, isn't it time to find out the baby's gender?
I suppose so.
Well, go ask your doctor.
Okay, I will. I wasn't alarmed yet, but should have realized they only accepted a boy. After I visited my OBGYN, I reported the results. So I went for my checkup today. It's a girl. We were eating dinner, and everyone all of a sudden put down their forks and looked stern. I became very anxious seeing their face change so suddenly. His parents sighed deeply and said,
A girl, huh? We hope for a successor, a boy. Reina, you were supposed to get it right on the first try.
I was speechless. Perhaps a successor is the most desired thing for a farming family, but couldn't they at least be a bit happier about the baby being born? I couldn't believe what I was hearing, both from my in-laws and my husband. I just wished at least my husband would stand by me. And what does he mean, get it right on the first try? A baby should be celebrated, not talked about as if it's a mere task. And after that, my in-laws treated me coldly as if they were different people.
Hey, what are you slacking off for? Hurry up and help with the farm work.
But it could strain the baby.
Don't be so soft. From now on, you'll work just like us.
But they tried to make me do the usual farm work as soon as they knew the baby was a girl. At first, I complied, but I feared for my baby's safety if I overexerted myself. So I insisted I wouldn't do farm work until after giving birth, regardless of what they said. They were furious, but the neighbors defended me when they heard about it.
It's cruel to make a pregnant woman so close to giving birth to farm work.
So considering the neighbors' opinions, they reluctantly stopped forcing me to help with the farm work. However, what the neighbors couldn't see was inside the house, where everything was different. Inside, they made me do all the housework.
Where's our food? Hey, we're out of liquor. You're such a useless daughter-in-law.
They harassed me while making me work hard. I did the housework in misery, wondering if I could safely deliver my child. I managed to give birth somehow, and my daughter was safely born. We named her Kendall. But my in-laws wouldn't even call her by her name.
Hey, the kid is being fussy. Take proper care of the kid, will you? You're her mother, so take care of her.
I was disgusted by their refusal to cherish my daughter. And after she was born, they mercilessly made me do farm work again.
Can't you move any faster? Such a useless daughter-in-law. Hey, Reina, get it together. We won't make the shipment on time.
They pressured me like that, and as if it were natural, they left all the household chores and childcare to me. Kendall was still a baby, so she cried at night. I had to get up and soothe her, which I didn't mind because I love her, but it meant I had less sleep before going to work in the fields. Doing hard labor on just 1 or 2 hours of sleep was extremely difficult. This situation continued for years, leaving me physically and emotionally exhausted. But I managed to endure because Kendall grew up to be such a wonderful girl. "Mom, why don't we leave this house?" One day, Kendall, now 9 years old, said to me, "It makes me sad to see you being blamed by Grandma and Grandpa." She cared about me and couldn't stand to see me oppressed by my in-laws. I'm sorry, sweetie. If only I had the ability to earn money on my own, I could take you away from here. I felt powerless. After about 9 years of being forced to do nothing but farm work by my in-laws, it would be hard to find a general job now. And my in-laws wouldn't allow me to leave. I had resigned myself to being used as a maid by my in-laws. But then something unexpected happened. It was during dinner one evening. Chris suddenly said he needed to talk.
I've fallen for someone else.
What?
You can keep Kendall. I'm gonna be with my new girlfriend.
I couldn't believe my ears. What do you mean?
You're no longer needed, he said.
I didn't understand what he meant. But my in-laws quickly accepted what he said. Then let's get you divorced. Finally, we can get rid of this plague.
Alrighty, I'll get the divorce papers tomorrow then.
My husband and mother-in-law selfishly tried to push me out like that. I wanted a divorce too, but being confronted with it like this was psychologically damaging. I had tried my best for the sake of this farm, valuing the connections with clients and neighbors. Despite the years I supported this farm, why was I betrayed so easily? But my in-laws kept moving my belongings out of the room. Watching them, I thought they were like demons without any common sense. Staying with these people would ruin my daughter. Then my husband made an unbelievable statement.
There will be no division of assets or alimony. And of course, no child support.
Whoa, wait a minute. That's not right. We can't live on that. And I don't agree.
I don't give a shit about your life.
But I was in despair. He intended not to pay me any money at all. And they were quickly preparing to kick out me and my daughter. I had no choice but to leave the in-laws' house with Kendall, taking only the most necessary belongings. Since I had always worked on the farm, I hadn't received direct payments. So I withdrew money from the savings I had before marriage and stayed in a business hotel for the time being. However, my savings had decreased significantly because I had used them for Kendall's tuition and necessities. And since my parents had passed away in the 9 years since I got married, I had nowhere to return to. After staying one night in a business hotel, I took my daughter to a chain restaurant in the city center. We ordered the cheapest menu and shared it. What should we do now? At that moment, someone unexpected came to my rescue.
Reina? Is that you?
Oh, hello. The person who approached me was Mr. Berg, the manager of the company that buys vegetables from my in-laws' farm.
What are you doing with such big luggage?
He must have realized something was wrong by looking at me and my daughter and asked with a serious expression. I was at my wit's end and found myself telling him everything. I didn't care if he believed me or not. I had to talk to someone. I felt like I would break down if I didn't.
Oh wow, I see.
He was on a break from work, but listened to my story attentively the whole time.
So the rumors were true, he said.
Rumors?
Yeah, I've heard from the neighbors that your in-laws were mistreating you.
I see.
And to think he's having an affair and not paying alimony or child support is the worst.
Then he offered,
Would you let me handle this situation? Also, if you want, I could talk to my sister and let you and your daughter stay at her place for a while.
I couldn't possibly impose like that.
Don't worry about it. Everyone knows how hard you've worked on the farm.
He immediately contacted his sister and took me and my daughter to her apartment. Lisa's place was spacious, clean, and she herself was very beautiful and kind. I've heard about your situation from my brother, Reina. Make yourselves at home. Thank you so much, Lisa. She played a lot with Kendall, who quickly grew to love her. After that, Mr. Berg provided support I never imagined possible. He introduced me to a lawyer he knew, a very capable one who offered his full support. Thankfully, the lawyer agreed to wait for his fees until we received money from Chris. And Mr. Berg also found me a job. It was a clerical part-time position at the company where he worked. They were just thinking about hiring. I worked hard, grateful to him and Lisa, and prepared with the lawyer to claim alimony and other dues from my ex-husband. I sent a certified letter to Chris's house when we were ready. He contacted me immediately, furious.
What the hell do you think you're doing sending me a certified letter? Are you trying to scare me?
But thanks to Mr. Berg and Lisa, I had the courage to stand up to him. You can ignore it if you want, but that means we'll go to court.
Court? Wait, are you serious?
Of course I am. You think you can get away with not paying alimony, child support, or dividing property? That's ridiculous. I'll demand everything through the lawyer, and I'll keep fighting until you pay. Reluctantly, he agreed to pay. The lawyer Mr. Berg introduced was so capable that we could claim a significant amount in alimony from Chris. Neighbors testified about the emotional abuse I suffered, which helped us claim additional alimony for that too. Of course, we could claim child support, and he ended up having to pay me a large sum. Then Mr. Berg told Chris's family that his company would stop doing business with them if they didn't pay me. It turns out the company he works for was owned by his father. Chris's family depended heavily on Mr. Berg's company, so losing their business would ruin them. Thus, he had no choice but to pay the alimony and other dues. I received over $350,000 from the mistress, Chris's infidelity, emotional abuse alimony, and child support. But then Chris and his parents faced hell. Mr. Berg's company ceased their dealings with them, decided by his father. They had only continued the contract because of a good relationship with Chris's grandfather, who had already passed away. There was no need to keep the contract any longer. This incident revealed Chris and his parents' true nature to other local businesses, many of whom wanted to end their contracts. Their business failed, and they fell into debt. The mistress quickly left Chris, leaving him alone and in debt. Realizing how much I had done for them, my ex-husband contacted me, wanting to reconcile. But there was no way I would go back. I firmly rejected him and blocked his contact. Now I'm still working at Mr. Berg's company. I have rented a new place for me and my daughter, and we're living happily together. My relationship with Mr. Berg has grown closer, and we've actually started dating. We often go out as a trio with my daughter. Whether this will lead to marriage, I don't know, but I'm enjoying my time with them and feeling very happy. I plan to continue cherishing my daughter as a single mother, enriching both my private life and career.
My Miel, unaware I pay the bills. You're not family. Leave. I happily agree. Post-divorce, husband faces a tough time. Lol.
You're not part of this family, so get out.
My mother-in-law said that, trying to kick me out. Is that so? Thank you so much. I smiled in agreement and decided to leave right away.
Help me out. I can't live without you.
These words would be really nice in a different situation, but right now, they don't mean a thing. We're strangers now. Never be involved in my life again. My name is Karen. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband Harrison for 3 years. We had a reasonably happy marriage, but things haven't been great lately. The reason is that Harrison recently switched jobs, and his salary took a big hit.
I think it's the company's fault I can't get ahead.
One day he started complaining like that. Sure, sometimes companies don't value their workers fairly, but I couldn't help wondering if some of that fault lay with him. Trying not to hurt his pride, I suggested that he could still get a raise or promotion if he worked hard at his current job, which paid decently. But in the end, he quit. During his job search, no company offered him a salary higher than his previous one.
Damn it! Why can't anyone see my worth? Everyone's just blind.
He would often grumble like this while drinking. As his drinking increased daily, I suggested that he try working in a field he was interested in, even for a lower salary. I really just wanted him to get a job quickly, but I didn't want him to give up working altogether, so I phrased it that way. Then he said,
"You're absolutely right. I should find a job that I actually enjoy, right?"
He became more positive and started looking for work. And after a while, he found a job.
I got hired!
Really? Which company?
It's a clothing store called XX.
Oh, a clothing store?
Yeah, I've always been interested in fashion.
Oh, I see. But you're a full-time employee, right?
Nope, just part-time. But I might become full-time if I work hard.
I see. I never expected him to switch careers like this. I had assumed he'd be hired as a full-time employee in a field he was interested in. But now his salary was about a third of what he made before. So our financial situation got tough. I decided to start a side job to increase our income. I tried various online side jobs and continued with the ones that suited me. At first, I only made a few tens of dollars, but gradually my side income grew to a few $100s. Meanwhile, Harrison acted like everything was fine, saying,
"I'm working, so no problem."
Actually, his attitude seemed even more arrogant than before. He never did any housework, claiming he was bad at it, and now he wasn't doing any but started ordering me around.
"Hey, we're out of beer. Bring me another one quick. I'm tired from work, you know."
But we were both tired from work. Actually, I worked longer hours. He only worked 4 days a week at his part-time job. I even work overtime. Yet, he acted like he was more important because he worked weekends. But that's normal in retail where weekends are busier. Harrison even started buying lots of clothes from his store, saying,
"It's a necessary expense and sales staff are like walking mannequins. I get a staff discount and you'll be happy to see me looking stylish, right?"
I wished he would contribute more to our expenses instead of spending over half his salary on clothes. He only contributed enough for our electricity and water bills. I was covering the rent, groceries, and other living expenses with my salary. How did things turn out this way? I began to think our marriage was a mistake. We met at a mixer, and I thought he was a handsome, nice guy working for a well-known company. But now, years into our marriage, he's just a part-timer. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have married him. But nobody can see the future. It was like an accident that nobody could have predicted, so I try to convince myself of that. But as I continued to feel disillusioned with my husband, I faced another difficult person, my mother-in-law, Maria. She doted on her only son, my husband, who, in her eyes, was still a corporate employee and a cute, brilliant son. Harrison had asked me to keep his job change a secret from her to avoid worrying her. So I kept quiet, but this led to her scolding me unnecessarily. "Look at you. You really look like you bring bad luck. My successful son is unlucky to marry someone like you. Don't bring your bad luck aura around him. He's gonna keep climbing up in his career." She talked about a future that didn't exist. Harrison had never climbed up the career ladder. I mean, he had quit his job to become a part-timer. I so wanted to tell her that, but I couldn't because of his request. When I glanced at him, he looked awkward, knowing he could clear things up. But he seemed to hold back due to a misguided sense of justice, not wanting to upset anyone. So I just had to endure Maria's mistreatment with a bitter smile.
Man, I'm sorry my mom says all that stuff.
After we'd visit his family and she'd harass me, he would say that, half laughing. I wished he would stand up for me, but he never did. I started feeling less and less love for him. Then, just as these feelings grew, I found out I was pregnant. It was a joy to have a child, but it only seemed to add to our difficulties. But I also thought this might be the chance for him to change.
You're pregnant?
Yeah, 3 months.
That's gnarly.
Gnarly?
I'm gonna be a dad. Now I've got to become even cooler.
He probably meant becoming more fashionable. But I wished he'd focus on earning more and becoming a reliable person. And what's with gnarly? Since working in apparel, he'd started talking like a young person. It's embarrassing for a man his age to talk like that. But worse was realizing I couldn't rely on him, even with a child on the way. Should I continue this marriage? That's what I started to think. Then something happened that made me decide to divorce. One day, my husband said he needed to talk. What's this talk about?
Well, the thing is, my parents' house is so old it started to leak.
Oh no.
Yeah, it needs some major repair work. And during that time, they want to temporarily live here.
Wait, you mean your mom and dad?
Who else? Given the situation, it can't be helped, right?
What do you mean it can't be helped? He acted like it was only natural for his parents to come stay with us, but that was outrageous. I didn't want that. So that means we'd be living together.
Yeah, that's right.
You know how your mom treats me, right? And still you're suggesting we live together?
What can I do? Besides, Mom isn't really that harsh. She just has a sharp tongue.
Yeah, her sharp tongue is exactly why she's so difficult to live with. I was completely frustrated with my husband's clueless remarks. Then, suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this time? To my surprise, it was my in-laws with big bags in tow. Oh, hi, Maria Sean. What are you doing here? We're moving in. Didn't you hear? Are you stupid or something? No, I just heard about this and I never agreed to it. Why do we need your agreement? Don't waste time and help with the luggage. So they just walked in, dropping their bags and heading to the living room. I glared at my husband.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you they were coming today. Let's just help them with the luggage.
What on earth is going on? I felt like screaming. When I went to the living room, Maria demanded coffee and cookies, as if it was the most natural thing. Hurry up and serve us. You're so slow. But I couldn't stay silent. You didn't come here as guests. If you want coffee and cookies, get them yourselves. What's with that attitude? She was furious at my words.
Karen, what are you doing? Don't upset my mom.
I'm not a housemaid here. If you're gonna stay here, you do your own thing. I stood firm with my response. Maria, red-faced, came at me. You are the daughter-in-law. It's normal for the daughter-in-law to have the lowest position in the house and to work hard for the family. That kind of normal is abnormal. It must be some crazy rule from wherever you grew up or some weird twisted belief in your head. How dare you! She was livid. Harrison was flustered, not knowing what to do. Sean seemed uninterested, just grabbing a drink from the fridge. His indifference was infuriating in a different way.
Let's all just calm down, shall we?
My husband tried to pacify the situation and took me to the bedroom.
What's gotten into you, Karen? This isn't like you.
What? Whether it's like me or not doesn't matter. It's your fault for bringing your parents here without asking.
But you don't need to be so angry.
Enough! I absolutely cannot live with them.
Karen.
While we were talking, Maria barged into the bedroom.
Are you still yapping about us, you piece of shit? Mom!
You cannot just barge in here like that.
Quiet! I came to my son's house. I can use it as I see fit. I'll say it clearly. You are not part of this family, so get out.
My mother-in-law tried to drive me out.
Mom!
He tried to intervene, but I spoke first.
Is that so?
Thank you. I accepted with a smile and decided to leave immediately.
What?
She was taken aback. I went to my room to pack my things. My husband rushed after me.
Wait, are you seriously leaving?
Damn right I am. I'm not wanted here.
No, it's not like that.
Harrison, sweetie, just let her go. She's just being prideful. But young lady, once you leave, you can't come back. I hope you know that. She gloated. Oh, please don't worry. I won't come back. I'll divorce Harrison too.
You what?
Good, Harrison. She's leaving you. Now you can find a younger wife.
Yeah.
He seemed to want to impress his mother even now. I'll expect child support for the baby. I'll pay that. Just don't rely on my son when things get tough. Don't worry, I won't. And don't you come crying to me either. Ha! Such sour grapes. Maria mocked me. But time will tell who really struggles. I left the house, passing my husband, who stood pale and frozen. I got the divorce papers and returned to my parents' house. They were shocked to see me just pop up unannounced, but furious when they heard the story.
You can stay here and rest even after the baby's born. And divorce that jerk quickly,
my dad said. So I filled out the divorce papers and went with my parents to Harrison's place. He brightened up for a moment, thinking I had returned, but then saw my parents and got scared. From then on, my dad did the talking.
Sign this divorce paper. No need for property division, but you must pay child support. That's our demand.
Harrison reacted to the no property division part, but was cut off as Maria stepped forward. Of course! Harrison, hurry up and sign it!
Okay, while he's doing that, let's move the rest of your stuff to the car.
My parents and I moved my belongings to the car. When we went back to Harrison, he had already signed the divorce papers. He handed them to me, his face pale. Maria still had a triumphant look, and Sean was indifferent, just watching TV in the living room. What a pathetic family, I thought as I left with my parents. I submitted the divorce papers at the city hall, finalizing the divorce. Later, I went on maternity leave and prepared for the birth at my parents' house. When the day came, I went to the hospital. Finally, I met my baby, a beautiful little girl. Holding my daughter, I felt an indescribable happiness and vowed to protect her all my life. My parents were also delighted holding her. Then, unexpectedly, my ex-husband called. I hadn't blocked his number because of the child support and a bit of curiosity about their situation. Hello?
Hey, Karen?
What do you want?
Well, help me.
What? You've got the wrong person. I told you not to rely on me when we divorced.
I can't live without you.
These words would be really nice in a different situation, but right now, they don't mean a thing. It's too late for that. I'm hanging up.
Wait! Things are really bad right now.
He then went on and on to explain their situation, which I hadn't even asked about. His parents' house had severe leaks, and the repair costs were higher than expected. They were planning to sell the house cheaply and move into his place. They planned to use me as a maid and kick me out if I got too uppity. Maria still believed her precious son was a successful businessman, so she thought it would be no problem even if the house sold for almost nothing. But in reality, he was a low-income part-timer, and I had been the one supporting the household. His meager income, which he usually spent on buying clothes, wasn't enough to cover the living expenses and rent for 3 adults.
We can't even afford food, and utilities might get cut off.
What about your parents' pensions?
They're really small, and my dad blew through his retirement fund on trips and luxury goods.
That's unfortunate, but it's their own doing.
We were once in love, right, Karen? Help me.
Stop it! It's creepy. We're strangers now. Don't involve me again. Oh, but I will demand child support.
I can't.
I don't give a shit. I'll have your wages garnished. Be prepared. Bye. I hung up and blocked his number. I didn't need to talk to him directly anymore. My lawyer could handle it. As for what happened to them afterward, I heard Harrison abandoned his parents and disappeared, probably thinking he could manage alone with his small income. I received the child support regularly, so I don't care about the rest. His parents, abandoned by their son, were evicted and now live in a rundown apartment surviving on their pensions. I once saw Maria in a discount supermarket, desperately searching for half-priced items. Her hollow cheeks and worn-out clothes were a stark reminder of the importance of planning for retirement. I'm focusing on raising my daughter and saving for our future.
My husband divorced me to marry his affair partner. My MIL tried to kick me out, but I forced them onto the moving truck and sent them off.
What the heck is going on here? Isn't this Karen's apartment?
Yes, since you said you wanted to live together, I helped out and sent you to her place. I'd be happy if you could appreciate that.
What? Don't joke with me like that. How do you know this place?
It's simple. You can easily get information by asking a detective agency. It was necessary to have the address to send you guys off.
I said I would live in that house with her and my mom.
What are you talking about? This house is mine. My name is Sarah. I have been married to my husband, Mark, for 8 years. We have a daughter named Megan, who has just started elementary school, and she is very important to me. Before becoming a mother, I didn't like children, so I never imagined I could have such feelings. However, becoming a mother made me realize that these feelings do indeed exist in reality. But there was one problem. That was the existence of my mother-in-law. When she found out that our first child was a girl, she immediately started asking for the next one. It seems that my mother-in-law won't be satisfied unless it's a boy. However, my husband's family is not wealthy, and my father-in-law is just an ordinary office worker with nothing special to inherit. So I can't find a reason why she would press us so strongly. Yet she keeps asking us why we're not having another child every time we visit them. We intend to let nature take its course, but it seems that's not enough for her.
Why won't you try having a boy? Hurry up and have a second child.
She would say this every time, but I am satisfied with just one child. My husband was not supportive in this matter, though. When I told him about my mother-in-law's words, he just told me not to worry, as she'll give up eventually. Furthermore, about 2 years after our marriage, the topic of living with my in-laws came up. My father-in-law's legs were getting weak, and they wanted us to live with them so I could help with the housework and care. I was against living together, but my husband was very cooperative, only at a time like this.
Let's help my parents. We're a family, so we should support each other and live together, don't you think?
Since my husband decided on living together forcefully, I had no choice but to accept it. But as expected, I was repeatedly approached by my mother-in-law about not having a boy almost every day.
No hope this month either. You're really a useless wife. Why can't you have children? Isn't it because you don't want to make one?
She always says such things, but one of the reasons we weren't able to have another child was because my husband has not been enthusiastic about it recently. I couldn't possibly say that my husband wasn't cooperating, so I was the only one blamed, and I've had enough. Then my mother-in-law says something outrageous.
Mark is going to remarry Karen.
What? Who is Karen? I haven't heard a word about it from my husband, but apparently she is his affair partner. Looking at my husband, he was engrossed in his game and not at all willing to be involved in this topic. I turned to my mother-in-law again. Then she shouted loudly,
I'm telling you to get out of here.
But Mark hasn't told me anything. When I said that, my mother-in-law called my husband and tried to forcibly involve him in this conversation. Since my husband was unresponsive, I had no doubt that there was no such affair, but when my mother-in-law brought it up, my husband answered as if it were obvious.
Karen? Yeah, she's my new partner. So I'm divorcing you, Sarah.
I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was hit with a blunt object. What is going on?
Well, all I can say is that it's just reality,
my husband said and went back to his game.
So hurry up and move out. The new wife is coming soon.
My mother-in-law added insult to injury. Please, explain properly. Is it true what she said? That your new wife is coming? Does that mean you were cheating?
It's not cheating. We're serious.
For once, my husband looked at me straight in the eye as he said that. You're serious? Well then how did such a relationship start?
It can't be helped. You didn't have children. He was having an affair because you couldn't have children.
I'm asking Mark, not you.
But it's true. Not able to have a boy was one of the reasons for the affair.
What?
That's why I've been saying have a boy. But you just said you'll leave it to nature and did nothing. That's why it ended up like this.
My mother-in-law said triumphantly.
Come on, sign the divorce papers now. And take them with you when you leave the house.
My mother-in-law messily placed the divorce papers in front of me. My husband's signature is already there. When did he prepare this? While sitting in front of me, my husband continues to play his game. Hey, we're talking about something important and you're still playing games?
It's just a short talk. It'll be over soon.
We're talking about divorce, about your affair.
It's just a matter of signing the divorce papers.
I couldn't understand why he could think of it that lightly. Your mother kept pushing me about children, but weren't you the one who hardly tried? If you thought it was no good unless we had a boy, why were you negative about it?
Oh my, blaming Mark now? You really have a bad personality. It's all your fault. And Mark wasn't interested because you're not attractive. You're too old in the first place. When I first met you, when Mark introduced you to me before marriage, you were already 30 years old. Honestly, I was worried if he could have children properly with someone so old. Then, as expected, you couldn't have children.
But we have Megan, don't we? I did give birth to a child.
Oh, that child doesn't count. Having a daughter is meaningless. A girl will eventually marry off. That's no use at all.
Useful or not, children have their own lives. How can you say such a thing?
Be quiet. You're really a cheeky wife. That's why old brides are disliked.
Unbelievable. I've always followed what Mark said and kept silent to maintain peace in the house. Seeing me silent, my husband sighed.
You know, I don't find your personality attractive. Even if you have complaints, you never say anything and always listen to me. That's just boring. But she's different. She has her own opinions. I'm attracted to people that can express themselves.
Wait a minute. I accepted living with your parents and always followed what your mother said. That was all for you, and you find me boring?
Yes, that's right. And we can't expect a boy, right? I no longer have expectations for you. After all, you're already 37 years old.
That's right. No matter how hard you try, it's impossible. Mark also, of course, prefers young women.
My mother-in-law said mockingly. At that moment, I remembered. Everything since we got married, I've been scorned like this, enduring my mother-in-law's harsh words. I was compared with the wives in the neighborhood and received sarcastic comments when the taste of my cooking was wrong. When my child was loud, I was criticized for not being able to take care of them, though I was old. Mostly, it was me who took my father-in-law to and from the hospital. Even when I asked my husband for help, he never took my side. What were these 8 years I endured? I never imagined it would end with my husband's affair coming to light. When did the affair start? Where did you meet that Karen? Since when was it?
I don't really remember, but it was probably a little over 2 years after we got married.
What? 6 years ago? That was when Megan was just 1 year old. So you really do prefer younger women. Where did you meet her?
Actually, my mother introduced us.
What?
She was a girl working part-time at the cafe I always go to. I thought she was perfect for Mark and approached her myself.
Does she know you're married?
Yes, she does. But she said it wouldn't be a problem if we divorced.
So she knew and still went ahead with the affair. How old is she?
What are you going to do by knowing that? You've already lost. Just give up.
No, my husband was taken by another woman. I have the right to know.
Well, if you must know, she's 29 now.
So she was 23 when you met?
Right. She was unsuccessful at job hunting and was working part-time then.
Being young and in her 20s, she can give birth to a healthy baby.
Did you recommend the affair with this woman just to have her bear children?
That's what I'm saying. Mark is starting a new family, so you should leave as soon as possible. Is that all you need to know? Hurry up and fill in the divorce papers.
Saying that, my mother-in-law tapped the table. At that moment, my daughter, looking uneasy, caught my eye. She was standing at the entrance to the living room, watching us the whole time. My daughter is watching. It's not good to talk about such things in front of a child, so shall we discuss this another time?
We don't need to. It'll be just a waste of time. Since we're at it, let's call her over. That way, we can save the trouble of explaining. After the divorce, the child must understand the situation anyway.
That's going to hurt my daughter.
It's okay. It's common in families these days. Parents getting divorced is normal now.
Saying that, my mother-in-law laughed as if it were someone else's problem. My husband seemed uninterested in talking anymore, absorbed in his game again. Hey, how can you be so indifferent? Don't you think at all about our daughter? When I said that without even looking at me, my husband dismissively told me that he doesn't care anymore since we're separating. At that moment, I felt there was no point in staying with these people any longer. Understood. I'll sign it. Saying that, I grabbed the pen and firmly signed the divorce papers. Then I blurted, "Are you satisfied now?" as I threw the pen on the table. My mother-in-law picked up the divorce papers, carefully examining them.
All right, we're all done here. Now get out.
Yes, it's absurd to stay under the same roof after divorcing. The new young wife wouldn't want this situation either, so I'll leave quickly. But I haven't decided on a new place to live yet. Could you give me at least a week?
Well, there's a child involved, so I guess it won't be easy.
Now that I've got your signature, I'll be generous. But make sure you leave within a week.
Saying that, my mother-in-law glared at me. Ignoring her glare, I took my daughter's hand and entered the bedroom. My husband left the house, humming a cheerful tune, probably heading to meet his new wife. Following him, my mother-in-law also left the house, probably to a friend's place. And we were left in the house with my father-in-law. My father-in-law had been living in a wheelchair for about half a year, so leaving my father-in-law behind with them would be the worst thing I could do. When I went to his room, he apologized.
They really are selfish, and I am sincerely sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
I can no longer cope with them, so I've decided to look for a facility and move there. I'm going to divorce my wife as well. I don't want to hand over my precious assets to them anymore.
My father-in-law is kind, and it seems he always indulged in my mother-in-law's whims, but it seems he has reached his limit. Thus, my father-in-law and I decided to cut ties with them. I felt that I needed to be strong. I'm the only one who can protect my daughter. Thinking so, I immediately took action. Within a week, I had packed my bags and arranged for a moving truck. In front of the entrance, cardboard boxes were piled up like a mountain. My husband and mother-in-law, who had returned home after a long time, could not hide their joy upon seeing the cardboard boxes.
So you're finally leaving? It's been quite a while. Well, I had a good time on a trip while you were busy.
Apparently, they had been traveling with a new wife.
But I didn't expect there to be so many cardboard boxes.
How much stuff did you have?
You're not planning to take the appliances too, are ya?
As you can see, not a single home appliance is missing.
Okay. Maybe it's because you need to take your daughter's belongings as well.
All of this was coming out of Mark's money. It was really a waste. We spent money on things that were so useless. Even if you forget something, I won't send it. I'll dispose of everything.
And that's okay.
Now the house will finally become spacious. I'll finally be relieved from the suffocation.
While the loading of the truck was in progress, they sat on the sofa. My mother-in-law was watching TV and my husband was engrossed in his game again, showing no sign of regretting leaving his daughter. It hurts to think that she was raised by such people. Even at the moment of an important farewell, my husband prioritizes his games. He really is the worst father. Living as such a person would twist my daughter's character. That's why I think it's good that we separated. My daughter was quietly watching me give instructions to the movers while she hugged her stuffed animal. Her face was clearly filled with unease, and her eyes were teary. Don't worry, there's nothing to be afraid of. I encouraged my daughter. With those words, I gently stroked my daughter's head. When all the luggage was loaded onto the truck, my husband and mother-in-law appeared in front of the entrance.
Is everything finished?
Yes, it's done.
You're finally leaving. Now we can call Karen.
Yes, finally. Thank you for everything.
Then, can you leave now?
Can you see us off to the truck?
Huh? Why do I have to do such a thing?
Because we've been a family for 8 years, and I thought it would be nice if you could see us off at the end. It's a farewell for my daughter, too.
You're so serious at strange times. Well, as far as we're concerned, it's enough if you leave, but I guess it won't hurt to do that.
Thank you. Then let's head outside. And so they agreed to my request. The two of them put on the sandals, left at the entrance, and came outside. I took my daughter's hand and headed out, giving the movers a sign.
Then, sir, please get on here.
The mover urged.
What? Why do I need to get on? It's okay, don't worry. Ma'am, please get on here as well.
Wait a minute. Why do I have to get on?
Because it's necessary. You'll understand why when you get on.
Wait. I don't want to.
The movers and I pushed them onto the truck. Though reluctant, they finally got on the truck because it was daytime and raising their voices would attract attention from the surroundings.
Mark, what is this all about?
Well, I don't really understand either, but making a fuss here won't solve anything, so let's just get on and we can return later.
Right, we can return later.
Then, mover started the engine and the truck was off. My daughter was silent as she watched the truck leave, but I smiled at her. Let's go have a snack. When we returned inside, I seated my daughter and laid out the snacks I had prepared in advance on the table. I also placed the small cakes I'd divided among the three of us, including my father-in-law, and said, "Let's eat." While enjoying the cake, I gently explained to my daughter that her father and grandmother had moved out. My little daughter might have thought she was going to have to leave this house. She seemed surprised by the sudden change, but I reassured her. Then a smile returned to my daughter's face. About an hour, as expected, I received a call from my husband.
What the heck is going on here? Isn't this Karen's apartment?
Yes. Since you said you wanted to live together, I helped out and sent you to her place. I'd be happy if you could appreciate that.
What? Don't joke with me like that. How do you know this place?
It's simple. You can easily get information by asking a detective agency. It was necessary to have the address to send you guys off.
I said I would live in that house with her and my mom.
What are you talking about? This house is mine.
What? That's my house. It belongs to my father now, but eventually I'm going to inherit it.
Do you think your father approves of you two?
What?
It's inter vivos. He transferred this house to me as a gift while he's alive.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean?
A son who doesn't cherish his daughter-in-law and commits adultery, and a wife who introduces her son to other women to have an affair. He was sick of you two, so he transferred this house to me.
I won't accept that.
It doesn't matter if you accept it or not, it was your father's decision. When I said that, my father-in-law asked to speak on the phone, so I handed my phone to him.
Mark? Dad, what's going on? Choosing Sarah's side over Mom and me? You must be out of your mind. You guys are out of your minds. I'm fed up with both of you. I'm cutting ties with you as your parent. Tell Mom that we're getting a divorce too. But, how are we going to live?
My father-in-law then hung up the phone.
Sorry I hung up.
It's okay, we have nothing more to talk about. After that, they rushed to our house, but I didn't let them in. I called the police and they were taken away. Since I've already filed for divorce, we are now complete strangers. My father-in-law decided to move into a facility. As he told me I could sell the house, I sold it after that. Now my ex-husband and former mother-in-law can no longer storm into the house. Afterward, I sued my ex-husband and his new wife for compensation. I've also demanded child support from my ex-husband. Since then, my ex-husband and former mother-in-law have been staying at the new wife's house. However, the room is too small for 3 adults to live in, and it seems they're only accumulating stress. They can only pay the compensation and child support in installments, leaving them with little money each month. My former mother-in-law, having divorced my father-in-law, has no choice but to live on her pension and depend on the new wife's earnings. However, she was a part-timer relying on my ex-husband's earnings, so her income is minimal. Even combining their incomes, they can only afford a very poor lifestyle. On the other hand, I was offered a full-time position from the part-time job I had for many years. Becoming a single parent, I was grateful to the offer and I accepted it immediately. Currently, I'm working as a full-time employee, spending my happy days with my daughter. We also visit my father-in-law at his facility regularly, and my daughter is always happy to see him. I want to continue working hard as I watch over my daughter's growth. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
I bought a $700,000 house with husband and mother-in-law, but ended up covering all the costs. As a result, I sold it without saying a word.
Huh? But you're the one who bought the house, right? You should be the one to pay the mortgage and the high utility bills for this house.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for us, who aren't even on the property deed, to be paying.
Why are these people so selfish? I'm completely amazed by their unreasonable behavior. If they're going to act like that, I have my own plans. I'm never going to help them again. I've made a decision. Let them struggle without me. My name is Adriana, and I'm a 34-year-old office worker. I've been married to Kevin for 3 years. We met at a mixer, and I fell for him at first sight. His appearance was the type I really liked, handsome and cool. It seems he was interested in me too. After that, we started meeting alone and our relationship began. We continued dating smoothly, and before we knew it, we were married after a year. His salary isn't particularly high, but he works as a full-time employee and I thought I could manage. I was just so happy to be able to marry him. At first, we had a happy married life, but one day he said he wanted to live with his mother. I was really surprised by that. We've only been married for a year. But it seems he's been thinking about it for a while because he's worried about his mother who lives alone.
Please, Adriana. I'm an only child, so I'm the only one who can take care of my mom. I can't relax if anything happens to her.
My husband has repeatedly asked to live together. Being begged like that, if I refuse, I feel like I'm doing something really bad. So I had no choice but to agree to living in New York City. Nice to meet you, Mom.
Thank you, Adriana. I'm glad you agreed to live together.
My mother-in-law was very grateful and happy to live together. Since she was so happy, I thought it might be okay. I prayed that our life together would go well. And perhaps my prayers were answered because at first, it was really enjoyable. For us, a dual-income household, my mother-in-law took the lead in doing housework. Honestly, coming home to find dinner already prepared was a huge help. My husband wasn't good at cooking, so I often felt overwhelmed being the one to cook all the time. We were smoothly sailing through our cohabitation. But little by little, things started to bother me. It was about my mother-in-law's requests.
Adriana, can I talk to you for a moment?
What is it?
The microwave is a bit old, so I want a new one. With the latest one, the electricity bill will be lower, and it will broaden the range of dishes I can cook.
I see. Can we afford it then? Since my mother-in-law was cooking for us, I approached the situation cautiously, filled with gratitude. I didn't have a problem covering everything regarding this. But later on, my mother-in-law started wanting to replace every household appliance with the latest ones, like the vacuum cleaner, washing machine, and refrigerator. However, I felt like some things didn't need to be replaced, so I often refused. Each time, my mother-in-law would consult my husband, and it would become a situation where it's 2 against 1, with my husband saying it's necessary. It became difficult for me to argue back when both of them convinced me. My husband and mother-in-law would say, "We'll contribute too," and take me to buy the appliances, but when it came time to pay, they'd say they didn't have cash on them and ask me to cover it. And even after that, they wouldn't reimburse me for several times. Well, I did use the furniture and appliances too, so I felt it wasn't entirely unfair. However, later on, they started making me buy outrageous things using the same tactic. One day, my husband came home with brochures for houses.
This house is old, and I think it's time to buy a new one.
When my husband said that, my mother-in-law's eyes lit up and she agreed.
What a great idea!
They said that and started looking at the brochures with excitement. I thought it was a bold decision to buy a house. But they seemed so happy. And my husband and mother-in-law seemed to find a house they liked, so the 3 of us went to see it. It was a newly built house, but it was very nice, and I also ended up liking it. It was spacious, stylish in design, and had good access to the city. It was also close to supermarkets, post offices, banks, and so on. At first, I wasn't very enthusiastic about buying the house, but I started to want it too. And we actually went through with the purchase, but even then, my husband and mother-in-law made me feel like they were leaving everything up to me. First, they suggested buying it under my name because it would be easier to pass the loan inspection. Then they said they would also contribute later. If I started discussing various matters here, it would take time. But this house is much more expensive than I thought, costing $700,000. What should I do? Should I temporarily take it back? But it would inconvenience the real estate agent who explained everything to me, and if I postponed this discussion about payment methods, someone else might buy the house. We can always change the ownership later, so I thought I'd buy it under my name for now. And with that, we actually bought the house and started living in our new home.
Wow, this is amazing.
It's really comfortable to live here.
My husband and mother-in-law were both very pleased. I also felt comfortable and glad I bought the house. But since buying the house, the attitudes of my husband and mother-in-law became worse. First, my mother-in-law stopped doing any housework.
The house is so comfortable that I just don't feel like doing anything.
Since she wouldn't do any cleaning, laundry, or cooking, I had to do everything. And then my husband also stopped putting any money into the house. We used to put money into each other's accounts every month for living expenses, but he stopped putting any in after we bought our new house, saying he didn't have any cash or that he spent it on entertaining his boss. He comes up with various excuses. And my husband and mother-in-law said they would also bear the expenses when buying this house. My mother-in-law said she would pay the down payment, and my husband said he would pay the loan together. But in reality, I'm the one paying for everything. On top of that, since I'm also paying all the living expenses, I gradually became mentally exhausted. After all, even with my decent salary, paying off the loan for a $700,000 house is quite a burden. I finally reached my limit and decided to talk to my husband and mother-in-law. Could you please contribute to the loan for the house and so on, as you originally promised, Mom, Kevin? Though I felt it was difficult to bring it up when I asked them like that, they gave an unexpected response.
Huh? But you're the one who bought the house. You should be the one to pay the loan and the utility bills for this house.
That's right. It's weird for us who aren't even on the deed of the house to pay.
Why are these people so selfish? I was completely amazed by their unreasonableness. If they're going to be like that, then I have my own thoughts as well. I won't help them anymore. I made a certain decision. If they're so troubled by me leaving, then so be it. Once, I decided that I just needed to act. I started packing my things without saying a word.
Huh? Where are you going? Are you going to buy a new air conditioner? We need it in everyone's room, not just in the living room.
My husband casually saying such things. Does he think I agreed with what he and my mother-in-law said earlier? I really made a mistake marrying such a thoughtless person. I left the house with my belongings and immediately headed to my parents' house. Since I came home so suddenly, my parents were surprised.
What's wrong, dear?
Did something happen? Since I had a gloomy expression, my parents asked with concern. I told my parents everything that had happened. As I spoke, I realized how unreasonable my mother-in-law and husband had been, which made me even more angry. And my parents were also equally indignant.
You don't need to deal with such people. You can stay here as long as you want.
My parents said so and accepted me. For the first time in a while, I ate my mother's cooking and had a relaxed time. And I was able to go to sleep in a relaxed state without being disturbed by anyone. The next morning when I woke up, as expected, there were a lot of missed calls and messages. They were all from my husband and mother-in-law, of course. The content was all about where I was right now, but they weren't really worried about me. To them, I'm just a house manager. So after asking where I was, the messages said to come back home to prepare meals. In short, they only think about themselves. I fully understood this in just one day. That's why I completely gave up on them. I continued to ignore messages and calls from my husband and mother-in-law. After 3 days, there were quite a few missed calls and messages. I decided to take paid leave and went on a getaway spa trip with my parents without going to work. I took Friday and Monday off, so it was a 2-night, 3-day trip with plenty of time. I spent a leisurely time at the inn with my parents. When was the last time I had such a stress-free, peaceful time like this? Even during that time, messages from my husband and mother-in-law came in several times, but I turned off notifications and put the phone on silent mode so I could enjoy my trip without worrying about them. When I checked the messages briefly on the way back, my husband and mother-in-law seemed to have visited my workplace and even my parents' house. But since I wasn't there, they seemed to be genuinely worried. While looking at the messages, I laughed to myself, thinking, serves them right. After finishing the trip, I returned home and spent the entire next day resting. I must have been really mentally exhausted because of my husband and mother-in-law. I was able to recover quite a bit mentally. After my break, I returned to work at the company. As expected, my husband and mother-in-law were waiting for me.
Hey, why haven't you come back yet?
What were you wandering around doing without any housework? You're not off with another man, are ya?
My husband and mother-in-law shouted without any regard for others. I replied, no, I haven't done anything like that. I called security to escort them out. Although my husband and mother-in-law were making a fuss, they didn't dare to cause trouble in front of the strong security guards. Since they were waiting near my workplace, I asked my father to pick me up by car. As I left the office, they tried to approach me, but they stopped midway when they saw my father. Ignoring them, I got into my father's car and went home together. After that, my father picked me up every day, so my husband and mother-in-law didn't dare to approach me recklessly, only sending messages or making phone calls. But after ignoring them for nearly a month, they found themselves in a tight spot. They must have realized it was a serious situation. Suddenly, my husband and mother-in-law came to my parents' house.
What's going on? Can we, talk to Adriana? Isn't it brazen to hurt my daughter so badly?
Oh, with all due respect, we don't even know why she left. And we were shocked to receive an eviction notice. If this continues, we'll lose our home.
Please talk to us.
My husband lowered his head as he said that. My mother-in-law followed suit and lowered her head slightly. I watched them quietly from where I was. My father crossed his arms and glared at them and asked,
Can you promise that you won't get emotional and angry no matter what? Yes, of course. We also want to talk things out.
My husband replied nervously. I had intended to have a conversation, but with my father intervening like this, perhaps my husband and mother-in-law would calm down a bit. Nervously, my husband and mother-in-law entered the house.
Adriana, why haven't you come back home? Because of you, we're... Ahem.
My father purposely cleared his throat. My husband looked startled, then sat in front of me and began to speak quietly.
Anyway, we're in a pretty tough situation. Why do we have to be kicked out of the house?
My husband asked me, looking troubled. My mother-in-law, although shrinking slightly, awaited my response. I told my husband and mother-in-law why I had left. Mom, Kevin, didn't you make me pay for everything? And you promised to pay at first, but in the end I ended up shouldering everything. Furniture, house, trips, living expenses, everything.
Did we?
My mother-in-law tried to play dumb, but I had written everything in my diary. I always wrote things down just in case something happened. Here, on this date, in the notebook, you asked me to pay first, saying you would reimburse me later. This is for the trip, and this is for the TV. Oh, and here's when we bought the bed. As I said this, I flipped through the notebook, and both my mother-in-law and husband turned pale.
You had something like this prepared?
Isn't this going a bit too far?
Why? You haven't paid a single penny, have you? What's wrong with keeping evidence? And the most important thing is the mortgage on the house. At first, we agreed that both my mother and I would pay for it, but I ended up paying for the down payment and the mortgage all by myself in the end. I warned you because this was different from our initial agreement. You made me pay for the mortgage, utility bills, and living expenses, leaving all your income for yourselves from the start, right? You never intended to bear the burden yourselves. You planned to do this from the beginning, didn't you?
That's...
Since the property is under my name, there shouldn't be any problem if I decide to sell it, right?
That's not fair. We're in trouble because our house was sold without our consent.
That's right. What should we do if you don't help us get the house back?
Then first, apologize to me for all the trouble you've caused me until now.
Huh?
You thought I would just do whatever you said because I'm easy to manipulate, didn't you? You've been taking advantage of me for so long that you probably thought it was okay to be selfish towards me.
Well, it's not like that.
If that's the case, would you mind apologizing? When I said that, my husband and mother-in-law apologized in a small voice saying,
We're sorry.
Well, I thought it would be something like this anyway. They're not the type to apologize sincerely, and I had no intention of forgiving them at all. If you apologize insincerely like that, I can't bring myself to forgive you.
What? We're sincerely apologizing because we feel sorry.
Yes. What's with the sudden accusation?
There's no way Kevin could have been sorry in the first place. Because, aren't you the one having an affair?
Huh?
My husband's face turned pale all of a sudden. I had actually hired a private investigator to look into my husband's affair, and I had obtained evidence that my husband was having an affair with a junior colleague at his company. When I showed him the photographic evidence, my husband was speechless. It seemed he had convinced himself that I wouldn't find out. So you let me handle the loan payments, and once that was done, you planned to make it all yours and bring your affair partner into the house, right? Judging by your mother's reaction, it seems she knew about the affair too, right? My suspicions seem to be correct. My mother-in-law seemed quite shaken. That's why I'm divorcing you, Kevin. Originally, the house was in my name, so there's no problem with me selling it, and since I'm getting a divorce, you two have become complete strangers. So, please leave the house immediately. Otherwise, you'll be arrested for trespassing. I'm free to call the police immediately.
That's troublesome. Let's calm down and talk.
No, it's impossible, and there's no need to talk anymore.
Do something about it.
Kevin desperately tried to interject, but I had nothing more to say. That's why my father stepped forward, glaring at them, and declared,
That's enough. Get out.
Despite his age, my father, a former police officer, had the demeanor to handle the situation. He could easily overpower my weak husband and, if necessary, call his former colleagues to have them removed. Faced with this, my husband and mother-in-law hurriedly fled the house. Later, I demanded divorce and alimony through a lawyer. Given the undeniable circumstances, my husband complied quietly. My husband didn't contribute any money to the household, so all his income could be used for his affair partner. As a result, there's no extra money besides the alimony to cover their own living expenses. That's why he was quickly abandoned by his affair partner. However, of course, he continues to pay the alimony. He pays it in installments every month, but it seems his life is quite tough, as I often receive emails asking for help or expressing a desire to reconcile. I ignore them all, and if the payments are delayed, I have his salary garnished. I'm back at my parents' house working hard to save money that I couldn't before. Since I don't need to support my husband and mother-in-law, I can save at an incredible pace, and I might even start investing in stocks. I plan to continue saving money while trying out new hobbies. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.